Hello and welcome to Cosy Conspiracies Research 2. Today we're going to continue with this article here, and then we'll go back and finish or continue with Irvin's article. But this time we are going to have just some calm background music, which should be sufficiently quiet, hopefully. Just double check. Yeah, my voice should be sufficiently loud to hear still. Okay, so where did we get to last time? Let's see. If we go to here. Oh, hang on. We take a look at this document. So, Doors to Perception. Huxley book based off William Blake's poem. Well, at least part of one of his poems, this bit here. Okay, so coming back to here, let's just see where it says that. Yeah, so we didn't get that far at all. Okay. So, continuing. Shortly after publication, psilocybin became available, created by Sandoz's Pharmaceuticals. Psilocybin was isolated in 1958 by Albert Hofmann from a mushroom identified by the French mycologist Roger Heim. Psilocybin Sacan. Okay, that's good info. Good info. Okay, so let's just see here. So we'll say in 1958. Oh, we also got all this in this article is just assertion, really. They haven't, used any sourcing, but that's fine. That's fine. Where be able to confirm all of this independently, I'm sure. So, isolated psilocybin from the psilocybe mexicana. It's a pretty cool name, isn't it? Mexicana mushroom, which was discovered by French mycologist Roger Heim. Okay, fine. Let's see. Shall we say Swiss chemist about Albert Hofmann, even though I already know that, but just to be, may as well put info. Swiss chemist. Okay, Swiss chemist. Okay, so bringing this back, and I think what I'll do is just for the sake of transparency on 350, we just bring it into YouTube here. Okay. It's gonna be really loud. It's on there now. Let's see. Just check the volume. It's good. Yep, that should still be sufficiently low that I'm, still easy to hear. Hopefully. Okay. And well, just bring it to there. That's around where we were. Okay. So let's see. The plan was brought to the scientists' attention by New York banker Robert Gordon Wasson and his wife, Russian pediatrician Valentina Pavlovna Gherkin. I didn't say that. They discovered it during a trip to Mexico in the summer of 1955. Okay, that's interesting. So, dealing with the same plan here. So, brought to the scientists' attention. So, okay. This mushroom was brought to Hoffman's attention by Wasson and Valentina. We'll use a full name. Actually, we'll use both their full names because I didn't know it was Robert Gordon Wasson, to be fair. Valentina Pavlov. Gherkin. I'm going to say what her occupation is. Nutrition. Because we also didn't know that. Okay. Very good. Very, very good. Discovered it's a trip to Mexico in 1955. Now, yeah, so it's discovered by Roger Keane. Wait. So it's just also Sandoff's made out of steel, isn't it? I don't know why I was complaining that's the deciding one, but so it was Albert Hoffman that actually isolated psilocybin, and I think LSD is a derivative of that, if I'm not mistaken. But despite the fact it was discovered, it was identified by French mycologist Roger Hume. It was kind of, yeah, I should correct that too. It's identified by Roger Hume, but it was kind of like found by Wasson, I guess. So it's probably the case. Okay, so turning back to the article. Aldous Huxley, the big man, the ringleader, arguably. Right. Mr. Huxley was one of the first people who the Wassons turned to. That's interesting. I'm most grateful to you for having allowed me to read this interesting, enlightening account. So that's curious. It's like, so Huxley wrote to Gordon in November 1955. Or maybe LSD was discovered beforehand. We'll find out, won't we? But the effects, according to Huxley, are comparable to those of LSD and mescaline, as they also prove to be power to decrease the brain's. They also prove to be power to decrease the brain's efficiency as a filter or a reducing valve. Okay, I mean, it's just saying that they're psychedelics, and that's what Huxley thinks psychedelics do. So let's see, shall we? What's curious here is, upon returning, Aldous Huxley was one of the first people Gordon Wasson contacted. In them 1955, Huxley wrote Gordon thanking him for his account and saying mushrooms limit the brain's reducing valve like mescaline or LSD. Yeah, very silly actually, because I mean, this thing literally says that, you know, like psilocybin came onto the scene later, because yeah, mescaline and LSD were popular beforehand, right? I think it says that somewhere. Yeah, yeah, mescaline and LSD weren't popular. I mean, we can add that for context sake. Um, hmm, maybe it's saying like, okay, I don't think it's that Huxley actually said that in the same letter. So we just say adult says mushrooms do this and this. Yeah, okay, we just really we'll figure out the order of all that quite easily, you know, once we have more and more context. Um, okay, so Wassons wrote about the encouragement is what led the Wassons to write in about the experience. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I didn't expect this article to kind of admit that much. Goodness. Because we'll see later that Irvin kind of theorizes that Huxley's like kind of the mastermind behind a lot of MK Ultra experiments and a lot of the counterculture kind of movements, ideas and whatnot. Okay. To describe the visions that had seized them after ingesting the psilocybe, Mr. Wasson invoked Plato and Mrs. Wasson cited Mozart. Two references that run through the doors of perception. Interesting. Similarly, the banker adopted very Huxleyan overtone to tell about the kind of schizophrenia that takes place between the rational side of the mind continuing to reason and to observe the sensations that the other side is enjoying. Okay, interesting. So, telling us a little bit more about Aldous' worldview there, which the Gordons took on according to this article. So we say this encouragement led the Wassons about their experiences in what 1957 was it? I think yeah, May 1957. So Wasson compared the visions to what Plato said, you know, which would be about the forms and all of that thing. Whereas Valentino referred to Mozart, which I'm not actually familiar with, but maybe he made some artistic thing or something. Yeah, as I know what Mozart, I know who Mozart is, but I'm not aware of him saying anything that could be relevant to psychedelics. But both of these references in the doors to perception. I mean, it seems pretty evident, like that they probably read Doors to Perception, and they it's probably why they did contact. One of the reasons why they contacted Aldous first, or you know, he's one of the first people they contacted. I mean, it is curious. Like, I'm just thinking, so in the early days, you know, Huxley wrote like point counterpoint, point what's like chromia, it's some kind of because he hung out in the like Cambridge Apostles and the Bloomsburg kind of group crowd, like people like John Maynard Keynes, Virginia Woolf. I think Prince Eddie even would have been hanging out with them, and they kind of hung out at like Rothschild's mansion in England, right? And so a lot of Huxley's early writings, I think, kind of pertain to I think some were like kind of whimsical, like jokey takes on some of the people there. I think there was a bit of philosophy and stuff, but um, I do have Moksha somewhere, the book with like a lot of Huxley's lesser known writings, and there's some pretty weird kind of metaphysical ones to do with like how he thinks consciousness or being or I am can emerge from nothingness, and then reality itself becomes unbearable because of like self-noticing. So there's then like a push for self-annihilation almost. It's a curious read, but we may be able to get Moksha up, and we'll come to all that. But yeah, I mean, it is, you gotta ask, like, okay, why would he write that book, right? Maybe he thought it was a really profound experience, and he's just a writer, so he thought, okay, I can, I ought to write about this. Or maybe he thought it was a experience which could be weaponized. So it's just something to think about. Um, yeah, what else? Let's see. So according to this, anyway, and we keep forgetting to just do source use indication. Okay. Wasson described as a kind of schizophrenia. Between the rational side of the mind, reasoning, and the sensations observed, that the other side is enjoying. It certainly sounds like confusion, doesn't it? Unless you're of a very rational mind, and I have experienced some psychedelic experiences, and it's very, to me, I wasn't too impressed. It kind of, like, one thing I noticed is it kind of changed reality from continuous to being more like cyclic. Like there would be almost 4-second cycles of consciousness. Like I'd come to be very conscious, can look around me, have like sound rational awareness, right? And then reality would kind of like start to break down. So I'd increasingly like struggle to think, and there would be like 50 hallucinations at once, because it's DMT, it's pretty strong stuff. And then like after the 4 seconds, it's almost like I blank out and wake up again. But I suppose like the most notable thing to me is I basically, normally when you're like experiencing or going through day to day, you have like the you have like sense data, right? And kind of like your thoughts, and both of those things are like experiences, right? But you can normally quite cleanly divide them. You can figure out like what's outside of you, what's just a thought in your head. But on that, it was more like those two things became indistinguishable almost, in the sense of their feeling or experience, direct experiential essence, I guess. Like a thought would be just as like convincing as feeling like part of my environment as a actual bit of sense data. So it's almost like lucid dreaming in a way. But at no point did I think like it was profound, or did it kind of, change my view on metaphysics or anything. So I just think people who kind of draw wacky conclusions from it are just not very good at reasoning in the first place in general. But yeah, that's kind of my experience. But anyway, yeah, I think that's all it says. So back to this. See, so likewise, the couple's adventure permeate the text of Ireland, which was Aldous' last novel. It was the novel he said Brave New World should have been. And if you read Ireland, it's Huxley. It's basically like a drug cult on an island, right? As the perfect ideal society, and Huxley says like that's what he wants Brave New World to be, and that's what he thinks things should be like, So it's not a warning against drug cults or, pharmaceutical control of people. It's advocating for it. But okay. So on the fictional island of Pella, home to a utopian society, residents worship moksha. Psychedelic substance, right? So Huxley would come to see me from time to time in New York. Oh, well, that's telling. Gentle, sweet, and learned man from whom I had the highest esteem. So, there we go. Wasson read it in his novel Ireland. It's moksha, which he patented after our hallucinogenic mushrooms of Mexico. Goodness me. Connections are wild. So, okay, have we already uncovered a conspiracy? Because whilst this is very, out in the open, very few people actually know this element of it, right? As far as I'm aware. Because Huxley's not exactly like a grassroots guy. He comes from a rich British aristocratic family. Gordon Wasson's a banker. It's all very like top-down imposed culture, right? Okay. So in Ireland, 1962. Aldous' last novel, which depicts a utopia on a fictional island called Pala, which may or may not have significance. Residents worship a psychedelic substance called moksha. Okay. Wasson claims this was modeled on the hallucinogenic mushrooms discovered in Mexico. I wouldn't say mushrooms, psilocybin, are the moksha drug. They're pretty bad. They can have bad effects in terms of making people feel quite have vertigo, feel quite ill. But to be fair, I think that is mostly just depends on how you consume it. Depends on if you get rid of like the chitin, like the mushroom skin or not, right? Or not skin, you know what I mean? The like cell wall, I believe, exciting because I think the stomach struggles to break it down and it creates like a feeling of being, queasy. There are ways to get around that, but yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, and more importantly, arguably more importantly, Wasson claimed, why did he claim? In 1967, that Aldous would come to see him from time to time. Yeah. Okay. So, the English writer, he was ill with laryngeal cancer and he died from that in 1963. It's a pretty interesting letter his wife, Laura Huxley, wrote she wrote to Julian Huxley, Aldous' brother, about like Huxley's dying moments and his death and her take, saying like, oh, because he asked for LSD when he was like, about to die, saying like, oh, this proves that he's correct about moksha, and just everyone should just be drugged up and have the happy drug or whatever. So yeah, we'll come to that bit. So the 5 pages of the book are devoted to the protagonist's discovery of moksha whilst listening to Bach. There was only this experience fact of being blissfully one with oneness, which is again scary, That's why loads of people end up in really silly worldviews like monism, where distinctions don't exist, despite and distinctions are what just pragmatic delineations of the mind, despite the fact that for some to be pragmatic there must be some truth in it. And I mean, like, how would you even have separate minds? How would you even have a thing to delineate stuff if all was just one, right? Doesn't actually make sense, but yeah. So Adolf Rhode Island whilst he was ill with laryngeal cancer. He died of this in 1963. Okay. On the same day, JFK was assassinated and some other dodgy thing happened. So yeah. The final pages of Island. The protagonist discovers moksha, which is blissfully one with oneness, which the experience of is blissfully one with oneness. Okay. As if, and also just like this, because something feels blissful in any moment, and it doesn't mean it's good. Obviously, like that's a kind of hedonic Kuma level of thinking. Really, it's not actually a justification. But okay. The experiments of Captain Trips Glue L. Not L. Rock, but L. Hubbard. I made that mistake once. Okay. So 8 years before his death, Mr. Huxley made a point of introducing one of his most extravagant friends to Mr. Wasson, a certain L. Hubbard, nicknamed Captain Trips, or the Johnny Appleseed of LSD. I suggested that he call you. Hubbard is an interesting man, born of very poor parents. I mean, it's possible, but I doubt that. Anyway, he wrote to the banker that day. He has a PhD in physics and is now the scientific director of the Uranium Corporation of Canada, a post he got, I believe, because of his OSS connections. Which this article is probably not going to mention conveniently. It might. It's pretty well known he was an OSS agent. But we'll see. Okay. So, what to write there? we'll say on January 2nd, 1955. Excuse me. Aldous wrote to Gordon, to Wasson. I mean, obviously when I put Wasson, I could be talking about Valentina, but I always mean Gordon when I just say Wasson. Anyway, let's see. Interesting man. It's kind of weird that Huxley points out too, like, I don't know, seems kind of odd, but let's see. Claiming he suggested that Al Hubbard called Wasson and that he was born of very poor parents, supposedly. Oops. Also claimed Al Hubbard held a PhD in physics, right? In physics, and is the scientific director, which at the time, of the Uranium Corporation of Canada. I know that Wasson also met with Parrish, who we'll get to in the end. Parrish was like again one of like Huxley's friends. So I do wonder if perhaps maybe Huxley's like the one hooking Gordon up with all these people. Don't know, it's a possibility. But yes. Oh, we should also just specify Al Hubbard is nicknamed Captain Trips. And again, we keep going to do this. Not ideal. Okay. I mean, this article is definitely quite good in their defense. Certainly a good way of like figuring out who to look into as a potential spook. Anyway, 30% way apparently. The strange captain had fallen in love with hallucinogenic substances, as the writer explained. As he is a deeply he's supposedly a Catholic, right? And it's not inhibited by academic scientists' discover of so basically he's a Catholic, he's not bound down by materialism, is what Huxley means by prevailing faith in mechanism, which suggests that everything is just deterministic materialism. His experiments have been more fruitful than those done by professional medics and psychologists, apparently. That's fascinating. So definitely, well, kind of included in this bit. Claims Al Hubbard is is a deeply religious Catholic, so isn't bound by worrying about empirical evidence contradicting materialism. So his experiments have been more fruitful than those done by, professional medics and psychologists. I mean, that's pretty based of Huxley. That's pretty based, to be fair. It's a shame, like, in thinking that they reject materialism, all these people fall for like low-tier new age spirituality, which is just repackaged materialism, right? They think like if you talk about, waves, man, that's somehow not materialism. yet they think everything is just based within time space. So they don't understand like Plato's conceptions, let's say, which I don't agree with, but he has ideas of like timeless, spaceless, continual, like universal things that aren't identical to nor contingent upon any individual material instantiation of those things. Whereas materialists and New Agers, who are just, materialists in denial, basic, kind of like fascists, fascists are also just materialists, but they use terms like spiritual. But anyway, they just think that everything's within time space, and things only exist as like instantiations, right? It's almost like nominalism, which is there's no universals, only particulars, right? So all very silly. Anyway, back to this. Oh, and just another thing on that, like, I mean, take Jung for instance, archetypes, blah blah blah. It's not, well, there's these universals which aren't dependent upon the particulars. No. Archetypes, common bit, traits seen between different instantiations, aka different people, are due to a collective unconsciousness. So similarities are because of almost like some particular hive mind between all the particulars, rather than some universal thing that exists irrespective of those particulars. So again, it's just materialism trying to pretend it's not materialism. But yeah. Okay. So in excuse me. So in New York, Wassons and Mr. and L. Hubbard met on several occasions. Be bad if it was L. Ron Hubbard. The archives that Le Monde consulted, it'd be nice if they told us which ones. Maybe they do in the previous articles. It's probably Euro. It's probably let's see, psychedelics Euro U2 or something. I completely well, if we just type in psychedelic archives, not psychedelic health, not Purdue, that's where Irving has his collections. Damn it, I thought it would be a bit higher than that. Laura Huxley, Leather, Psychedelics, Archive, Open Culture, there, Notes. Yeah, I was in. Euro, that's one. That's the one we're thinking of. Well, it may not be because there's actually adverts. That's a disadvantage. I will have to, for now, excuse me, play music in like another tab, where we won't get ads. So, YouTube. Right, let's try that again. Go. Let's do this one. Let's check the volume, should be good. Yeah? Okay, good. But your wit's struggling to load, that's unfortunate, but maybe that. There's a lot of archives, to be fair. So, did not say whether the captain showed up in his favourite outfit, a paramilitary uniform with a gun, which I've seen where I see in the video where all the kind of psychedelic crew party together. Nor do they say whether he opened up about his trouble past, as he was in turn an inventor of radioactive batteries, a cab driver, an arms and alcohol dealer, a convict, and an intelligence service informer, before becoming a millionaire thanks to the Canadian uranium company. So to be accurate, he was a cab driver who smuggled, if I remember correctly, alcohol, and he built his own batteries to like secretly communicate with, I think, some kind of ship or something to enable the smuggling. He got caught, and then rather than being convicted, he was hired by the OSS, or he was let off his conviction by the OSS, to say, we'll do the same thing, rather than smuggling alcohol, we want you to smuggle arms for like some kind of war effort. So he became an OSS agent, and then after that, after the war, I think he was going to be convicted for that, so the OSS like allowed him to flee to Canada. So yeah, interesting stuff. And he is later given a presidential pardon, you know. So kind of, he's not just a nobody, that's for sure. We'll also, okay, we'll just say from this, we'll just say Al Hubbard's met Wasson's in what, New York? And yeah, New York several times, a bit vague, but nice to know. Yeah, that's kind of the only relevant bit. Everything else mentioned I already know and like have below. Like, I mean, look, we can literally see how Hubbard's, yeah, like, look, so Dr. Colonel L. Hubbard is a free energy inventor, alien contactee, prohibited booze runner, and drug enforcement agent. Supplied LSD to people and did human experiments out of his clinics under MK Ultra. You see, that's probably Museum of Terror's take. But anyway, so Captain L. Hubbard, or Alfred Matthew Hubbard's, Johnny Appleseed of LSD. You know, he had some weird, like, angelic vision, supposedly, that allowed him to build a radioactive battery, and sold that. During Prohibition, he set up a ship-to-shore communication system in the back of a taxi to smuggle alcohol into the US and Canada. Got caught and served 18 months, but then the OSS recruited him to do that, but with drug gun running from San Diego to Canada before the US officially joined World War II, right? So already the OSS were working to undermine the American people's will, right? Anyway, when a congressional investigation into this started, Al Hubbard moved to Vancouver and became a Canadian citizen. He founded a charter boat company and became a millionaire in the 1940s, and he received presidential pardon 2676 from Harry Truman. And there's just a lot more information here. I'm sure we'll actually get into all that properly, but very, very curious guy. Again, whenever you actually look at these, culty, like all angelic visions guys, they're always intelligence agents. They're always like being helped from really powerful people. And don't take my word for it. The more we look at these guys, you'll see a recurring pattern. It's the same with Baharaj, same with Al Hubbard, same with like the KC guy, who was like he's portrayed as this random occultist, but he's best friend, good friends with FDR. Um, and he's like the guy who like largely created like the Atlantis myth. So yeah, it's curious how culture creation kind of happens from these people, these well-connected people. Anyway, okay, so shocked by his discovery of LSD in 1951. I think he took LSD in 1951. He made it his mission to deliver it to all of America's elite, from Hollywood actors to leaders to scientists and politicians. And how's a random who just do that? Go into Beverly Hills and knock on doors and be like, oh hello, Tom Coon, do you want some LSD? Like, clearly he must be connected. Oh, he went to meet them in his private jet, his Rolls-Royce or yacht, of course, which was anchored on the island he owned off the coast of Vancouver. So the dude's got an island. I mean, it's normally not a good thing when, powerful, elite connected people have an island, if you know what I mean. But Abu was like a bee, foraging among all the pioneers of psychedelics, said the American journalist Michael Pollan. Of course, Michael Pollan would make a bee reference, right? A specialist in these substances. It is estimated that he introduced LSD to 6,000 people between 1951 and 1966. So people who are like, one person, a few or a few people can't influence these things. Well, I mean, look at what this guy did. Something as simple as that would have really given like the psychedelic movement a lot of ground, Oh, and I forgot to switch to here. Just this bit here. But yes, okay. So we're right at. Let's see. A lot of this information I probably have below and I'm repeating, but it was like 2 months ago I wrote it or something, so I kind of forgotten. So Al Hubbard took LSD in 1951. Made it his mission to give it to America's elite, including Hollywood actors, leaders, scientists, and politicians. Maybe that's why society went far left, who knows? But he met them on his private jet, Rolls-Royce or yacht. I cannot spell. Okay. Anchored on an island he owned off the coast of Vancouver. Okay. Let's see. So then we're just, is Michael Pollan making the claim? Okay, interesting. So they're actually talking about, oh, sugar. I'll have to correct some of the source use indication above, but oops. So Michael Pollan, be a lovely name. Pollan claims Michael Pollan, journalist specializing in psychedelics, claims Al Hubbard introduced LSD to, oops, to 6,000 important people, by the way. 6,000 people between 1951 to 1966. Okay. And I mean, I haven't actually checked. We'd use this for him, for Michael Pollan, because I haven't actually confirmed his. Wow, actually, just because you're a journalist doesn't mean you have privy. I'll just have to do like this for now. Let's see. So this would be, again, haven't confirmed, this would be like Huxley's own. Oops. Oh, the sourcing system can be didn't seem a bit like semi-confusing sometimes, but yeah, it can never be. I think we said it can never be bold, right? If it's a self-claim, because if we're relying on someone else's claim for someone's self-claim, well, you can never really go and prove that the person actually said it, right? It's debatable, but for now we'll leave it at that. Again, this would kind of be Huxley's work, so again, because I haven't actually gone like confirmed, I haven't read. Well, I have, but I can't really remember. Until I go and read the text myself, where I keep it like this. But when I do, this S can go, and this can become bold and underlined. Okay. So this can be that. Okay. Let's see. And he would have privy to know, wouldn't he? So Huxley's opinion. No, me, I messed up here, didn't I? We'll leave that like that. Okay, Huxley wrote to Gordon. I mean, what I should do really. No, what I will do actually, the correct thing to do. Stop being so lazy. I should do this because it's given me like a clear. I can go and like for the letter. It's given me a clear kind of. Has it given me a source? That's the thing. Okay. We went with this one just in case I can't find the letter. But I mean, Moksha contains a lot of the letter, so it won't be that hard to find. And for now, that's like Wasson's own actions. Wasson's own opinion. Like here, I mean, we're given an example. We won't bother correcting all these right now, but really I should do this because it's a clear source. It's in the book Island, right? And then I just do that, and it's in the book Island, right? I just haven't checked that's actually the case. So the source use indication itself is more it's more for, like, you know, so if a source has been given a book but we weren't sure that Huxley actually wrote the book, then that would be like not underlined and bold, right? So it's more to do with the nature of the source itself, rather than whether or not the source actually says a thing or not, right? If that makes sense. So actually I might have to correct some of these, but it's okay for now. I can kind of do some of that off camera maybe. For now, let us continue. Okay, so L. Hubbard had a revolutionary insight. It is not enough to consume a psychedelic substance for it to have beneficial effects. It must be done under the right conditions. I mean, nowadays we'd say no shit, right? What exactly are successful experiments that Mr. Huxley mentioned in his letter? Thanks to his close contact with Mr. Osmond, a psychiatrist, again, so best buddies with Osmond is buddies with L. Hubbard. I mean, isn't that also a bit ironic? Because Huxley's like, well, the psychiatrists are, you know, like bound by psychologists and medics. So I'm just going to check I got that right in here. He's like, you know, the psychologists and medics don't want to refute materialism. I mean, do psychiatrists then? No, because they're psychologists, right? So, but yeah. Must be done under the right conditions, that is to say, a soothing environment with trustworthy people. In other words, I mean, are any of these people trustworthy? I mean, aren't a lot of them kind of sharps? Maybe they trust each other, I guess, I don't know. In other words, Mr. Hubbard took care of the decoration, the soundtrack, and the comfort of places where he and his friends gathered. The soundtrack? What, did they play like cozy music like I am? I mean, interesting. So, the key thing here, however, is to contact. L. Hubbard had close contact with Humphrey Osmond. Okay, again, we'll just put psychiatrist. No, it's a Canadian psychiatrist, and allowed him to realize the nice environment when having psychedelics. So he organized this for himself and his friends. You know, they're having psychedelics right, don't you know? The elites know how to have psychedelics well. Okay. This approach would be conceptualized in the early 1960s by psychiatrist Timothy Leary, CIA, under the term set and settings. Assuming the substance is in an adequate context, set, and state of mind, setting, things. Okay, I mean, bit of a weird use of the words. Considerably reduces the risk of bad trips, those unpleasant, even traumatic experiences, right? That made so much noise. The psychedelic spray months of protesting youth, yeah. Protesting by doing what the elite do, sure. Hallucinogenic massacres perpetrated by members of Charles Manson's cult in the summer of 1969 precipitated the prohibition of LSD and psilocybin which was enacted a year later. Enacted rather, based upon. I wonder this article will point out that Timothy Leary and all were actually the ones who advocated for LSD being banned to make it seem more anti-establishment. Irvin exposed that. Okay, so I forgot to switch again. Silly me. Just this paragraph here. So I would just change it back to this. I should stop forgetting to change it. Okay. In early 1960s, Timothy Leary said sex, which is adequate context, and I guess he means environment, and setting, state of mind, reduced risk of bad trip. Yep. Hallucinogenic massacres. Done by Charles Hanson's cult in 1969. Yes, precipitated, supposedly, I can't spell, precipitated the ban on LSD and psilocybin. Was enacted a year later by Richard Nixon. Crazy stuff. Also, where to see, because this is underlined. So they did some sourcing.
To fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive. I have asked the Congress.
I think when I get through this, at the end we'll check everything that's like, we'll check all the underlined links on this, right? And then we'll get back to Urban if we can. Honestly, the whole episode may be taken up with this, where, what, like an hour in? Yeah, I'm just hoping that hopefully my voice carries okay despite the music, but it just based on the audio I can see, my voice is like maybe double, twice as loud as the music, so it should be okay. But anyway, let's see. So, Mr. Wasson, good old Gordon, witnessed this backlash with frustration. Have I changed? No. There we go. There you go. That'll change. So, Wasson was frustrated. Although his research explored the spiritual dimension, even though, I mean, do you think these people could define spiritual? Yeah, I don't think they understand metaphysics for a start, so I'm not sure they could distinguish material versus spiritual. But anyway, not that they're even dialectic necessarily, but you know, he had nourished certain hopes around their therapeutic virtues. Right, in the second to last paragraph of his 1957 book, will mushrooms also provide help in coping with psychic disturbances? So, yeah, he mentioned it pretty early. So his wife supposedly sensed it better. In the photo illustrating the story in this week, she posed in her white pediatrician's coat. Right. So, believes that mushrooms will become a vital tool in the study of the psychic processes. This magazine's reporter summarized in a companion piece to the article. Right. So, Miss Wasson, with scientific caution, declines to commit herself. But it can hardly be doubted that this drug becomes better known, use will be found for it. Perhaps in handling alcoholism, which I think is actually I think addiction and alcoholism is currently potentially like psychedelics are being explored as an option to maybe treat them. But yeah, narcotics addicts in treating terminal illness accompanied by acute pain and in mental diseases. If you die of cancer, I mean, to me it's quite suspicious actually. I don't read that and be like, wow, they were so insightful. I read it like, you know, are things being pushed towards what they want, maybe? You know, maybe it's like, well, addiction's bad, right? Therefore, come and get addicted to our substances, which is not addiction because it feels nice, you know? Anyway, let's see. Yeah, this was... Okay, I'm gonna say we'll come back to this. Plan enacted a year later by Richard Nixon, because they provided the source, you know, an actual video. It may not just be an assertion. Okay. So. Oh yeah. So. Wasson's 1957 Life article ends with, excuse me, well, mushrooms also help in coping with psychic disturbances, and honestly, we have to go and check out the article, but that would be his same claim, right? So there we go. That's what I should have been doing, right? It's so tough, but anyway. In this week, yes, she tried to present herself as a scientist, right? Valentina posed in a white pediatrician's coat. Okay, and magazine's reporter in what a companion piece to the article. It's just funny that they're not actually citing her article directly, they're citing what this reporter said. So, claims Valentina believes mushrooms will become important in studying psyche, and beyond this, to the declines to commit herself. I guess she doesn't want to say, like, well, actually that's kind of contradictory, because she's not willing to say it could be used medically, right? But the reporter thinks it can be hardly doubted that curious. Okay. Reporter suggests, because we've got to be specific here, as mushroom becomes more well known, can be therapeutic as potentially for alcoholism and narcotic addiction. Okay. Um. Uh. Mental diseases and in terminal diseases with acute pain. With acute pain? Yeah, like chronic pain. Um. Okay. And Valentina is a cancer god too, apparently. Died of cancer on December 31st, 1958. Damn. She was around for long, was she? Okay. After the discovery, I mean, so let's say that one's assertion. And for these, I can check. I can check. So. Okay. Let's play it like this. So, that there is here. Oh, okay. So that, but where say sorry, this would be that, and C would be that. That's what that should be. Okay. We just do that there. Very good. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Playing with so-called pseudoscience, as if most science isn't pseudoscience. Okay. Let's see. Well, so putting this here. Okay. Shattered by his wife's death. So yeah, again, not doctor daughter. Wasson turned to Masha Wasson to watch over his experiments. In the mid 1970s, he organized sessions in his home in Connecticut with Mr. Hoffman and classical studies professor Carl A.P. Ruck. Okay, so we're knowing a lot more about Carl A.P. Ruck. The three men were trying to discover the secret of Kaikion, the secret beverage consumed by the participants of the Elysian Mysteries. So this is the Elysian Mysteries kind of thing, that we heard of in the last research session. Why though? A bit random, isn't it? They tested various potions under the nurse's watchful eye. I see. Okay, so they were just just drugging themselves with like random potions, so-called potions. That seems like a very stupid idea, I can't lie. But anyway, there's a strange game where unbridled amateurism vied with extreme scientific rigor. I doubt that, but amateurs like Captain Trips. So I'm just thinking amateurs come up elsewhere with like some person trying to like separate the psychedelic people they didn't like Timothy Leary, Harris from the so-called scientific minded ones. But anyway, amateurs like Captain Trips, Aldous, Huxley, and Mr. Wasson have played a decisive role in the history of psychedelics. I myself am one of them. So Mr. Pollan is a amateur, I guess. He is a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, where he co-founded a center for the science of psychedelics. So Mr. Pollan is certainly no random journalist who is now an authority on the substances, began writing about food. Suspicious guy. Okay. So that's a nice amount of info. We like that. Always nice to have some more context about things like vaguely mentioned. So, uh, Gordon Wasson, don't know why I felt like putting his full name there. Asked Masha Wasson, nurse, his adopted daughter Masha Wasson, to watch over his experiments, to watch their health as he, Mr. Hoffman, well, we should just say Albert Hoffman, should we? Albert Hoffman, and let's see, Carl A. P. Ruck, try to discover the secrets of, is it like KY, I think that's it, which was the secret beverage consumed in the Eleusinian rituals, or Eleusinian mysteries. I still can't. I'll get it one of these days. Mysteries. How curious. Oops. In the mid 1970s, in his home in Connecticut. Okay, there we go. A surgeon, but I really hope it's true. That's wild. Okay, so on to Mr. Rock. Oh yeah. So we'll just put according to Ruck there, because there may be a. She may just tell me where I should look for a source potentially if I want to. Okay. And we'll also say that Carl A. P. Ruck was a classical studies professor. Okay. Yes. So I also just say, oops, should be this or not? Mr. Holland considers himself to be amateur, like Al Hubbard's, like Al Hubbard's, Aldous, and Wasson. Okay. For this, we just do this. That feels different. What's that? Oh, it's the second one down. Did I do the second one down? Yeah. just... Oh, right. I'll go through and check all these because I think essentially what I mean is what I should be doing is only underlining. So someone's like making a claim about their own kind of worldview, then that's always going to be like underlined, right? If someone says something about their actions, I think I should only underline. I think I meant I should just underline it if there's additional evidence supporting that, or what I think is enough evidence. So, like you see here, it'd be quite, Wasson wrote. So this is his own writing, and there's like evidence he actually did think that, perhaps, right? Would probably be the correct application, but I'll think about that one. Okay. Either way, we want this to be this. I gotta get used to my own sourcing system, but it's just one of those things. So pollen is a what was it? Richard Pollen something. Whatever. Pollen is a professor at the University of California, UCLA, right? Is it UCLA? Am I being silly? UCLA. Yeah, University of California, of course. Very spook-connected place that is. So yeah. Just thinking. So, it's professor at the University of California. Co-founded the Center for the Science of Psychedelics, and it's almost certainly a spook, because I mean, yeah, I swear, like, all the people who do like the psychedelic-y things, they're always like people who are just very well connected, and I do believe that this stuff gets pushed by intelligence agencies, but well, whether that's proven in the end or not, we shall see. Now an authority, yes, because that's not a logical fallacy at all. On psychedelics. He began writing about food. What about it, I wonder? Because again, I mean, even something as what seems as harmless as that, it can be, just consider the food pyramid scam, right? Even that gets into politics and potential subversion. So, yeah, okay. Let's see. So, the similarities with the Wassons are striking. What do they mean? Oh, as in they're saying like pollen is similar. Yeah, maybe because. Okay. So, the Wassons was first interested in the culinary qualities of mushrooms. They discovered on their honeymoon in 1927, and then before exploring their so-called societal role. So, they initially planned to write a recipe book, apparently. It ended up being the treatise titled "Mushrooms, Russia, and History." And they split people into mycophils and mycophobes. Italian botanist Giorgio, perhaps, and Morini said, Wasson had the strengths and weaknesses of amateurism. He had the gift of being able to link data from very different fields. His methodology lacked rigor. I mean, could you be any more vague, right? So, let's see. Nope. Okay, good. That's where we want to be. So we'll say the Wassons. Hang on. Gotta correct this. Okay. Wasson's interested in, according to this anyway. Not everything that this thing's saying will be true, by the way. We'll like update our notes as we look at more sources and evidence. In mushrooms, in culinary quality for mushrooms, they found on honeymoon in 1927. Yeah, right. Then they explored their societal role. Even though they supposedly spoke about that literally the next morning, right, according to Wasson himself. So, recipe book. Planned recipe book became, even, I mean, they were interested in the culinary quality, but they didn't know about it yet, so why did they just think like, well, this could be good food, so we'll write a recipe book where presuppose it will be good, and then write a recipe book just to do with these specific mushrooms? Seems like, I don't know. Maybe Wasson was just autistic despite being a psychopathic banker, right? The recipe books became became mushrooms, Russia, and history. Again, 1957, right? This divides people into myophils and myophobes. I know we mentioned this above. Mycophils and mycophobes. We can kind of condense the above bit into this, I'm sure. In fact, we could just myco. We'll leave that for now, actually. We'll leave that. Yep. Okay, so look at all these notes, goodness me. We're here. Okay, just an insertion there. Okay. And we will also just, we don't really care about what he said because it was like literally the least helpful thing. You know, it's just he didn't really say anything. But we'll say that Italian botanist, excuse me, Rocchio Samorini claimed Wasson's could link data from different fields, but their methodology lacked rigor, and no source actually given to that. And C, because we have no idea. Okay, good. Yeah, I keep getting kind of hung up on the sourcing system. I'll kind of think about it a bit more, but I think it's mostly pretty sound, mostly pretty good. I think the bit, yeah, where it kind of trips up is just if someone's making a like opinion claim, uh, like I guess, yeah, I guess the only real thing that makes sense is to say you can so you would um because people are capable of lying about their opinion as well, right? If someone lies, then we can say we're treating more like an action rather than their actual opinion, perhaps, because we're more interested in the fact that they lied rather than their worldview at that point. So then we would just, treat it like they actually did say the thing, um, and then it becomes like underlined like blue if there's evidence they said it. They because at that point the saying becomes the action, I guess. If that makes sense. So yeah, okay. So almost there on this bit anyway. Let's see. So, in fact, among the banker's heirs, some propose hazardous theories flirting with pseudoscience. Hazardous. One of them, formulated by Terence McKenna, claimed that the human species descended from primates who consumed hallucinogenic mushrooms at the end of the Ice Age. A claim that had been rejected by the majority of scientists, who appeal to majorities of fallacy, but the stoned ape theory is pretty silly, really. I mean, like, what's the likelihood that, you know, only at one point in history do people do these these animals, take psychedelics, and it just so happens to be able to turn them from apes to humans, right? Like, and apes aren't doing it currently, or apes aren't turning to humans currently, and despite and given how subjective psychedelics are, you just have one species emerge from that. It's just a very bizarre idea. Yeah, the categories proposed by Mr. Wasson and his followers are often simplistic, even essentialist. So the distinction between mycophilic and mycophilic peoples should have been considerably refined, saying it's a false dichotomy, basically. Or it's a reductionistic dichotomy at the very least. I mean, it doesn't exactly sound like a complex theory, does it? But let's see. So, ideological heirs, I mean. Terence McKenna proposed the stone ape theory. Rejected theory was ideological heir of Wasson, let's say. There's not really much more to add than that. Bring that here, and so Merlin Sheldrake, British biologist, claims is he used as an example of categories like Marcaio Vogue proposed by Wasson as followers by Wasson, which is by Wasson's and their followers reductionist, and so S, and again, like, I don't know, just for now, just going to see, like, who is that Google, okay, and Yes. Dive in New Age community. This will get interesting. No addiction. Possible developments. Okay. Not doing bad, not doing bad. Might be like kind of maybe 2 hours and a half by the time we've gone through this. So they have New Age communities, which is what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the New Age stuff, I'm interested in cult creation. So the British scientists studying how fungi have shaped living things, allowing plants to communicate with each other, and how they could determine our future by replacing certain types of plastics with food. Okay, it's a bit random, but interesting. Yeah, I did switch it. Good. So we'll come back here. Oh, actually, we'll continue reading. For centuries, scientists looked down on fungi, equating them with plants until the 1960s. Difficult to access. They are associated with death and decay. I mean, this is very grand narrative stuff. It's very, yeah. And apparently Wasson came up with the argument that there's stigma attached to mushrooms in Anglo-Saxon countries, which is kind of like a bit silly. Like, who thinks that mushrooms are inherently bad, right? I mean, collectively they probably are, or at least collectively the mushrooms that Anglo-Saxon people may encounter probably would be, but it doesn't follow that we think mushrooms themselves are bad. It's just not a good idea to just randomly eat some, obviously, right? Same with berries. It doesn't mean that there's a stigma against berries, right? So saved or used, I believe, to establish a link between hallucinogenic mushrooms and spirituality. I mean, I would say the opposite. I would say that New Age spirituality is egotism and essentially the opposite of being actually spiritual, and holding oneself to logic and things higher than immediate hedonic pleasure, whereas New Age spirituality or psychedelic trips are just, wow, that felt really good, that felt really strong, that felt profound, therefore it must be valuable. It's the opposite of spirituality, it's pure hedonism, right? So with that, let's come back here. So Sheldrake. Ooh, is that getting a bit loud? Hang on, let's see if we can turn this down slightly. Kind of, that's like as low as it can be, so hopefully it's okay. So let's so we'll say what he's doing first. Studies how fungi allows plants to communicate, because I mean, you can't say they shape living things as a whole, obviously. Also looking at how they can replace certain types of plastics or foods. Okay. Again, no actual evidence provided, so Sheldrake claims scientists look down on, like, look at the emotive language. Or did I just hallucinate that? No, look down. Sorry, silly. Scientists equivocated mushrooms with plants until the 1960s, apparently. Oops. Because they're hard to success, and because because they're associated with death and decay, supposedly. So why would they equivocate them with plants? Are plants associated with death and decay? And again, why this is his own, you know, it's his own kind of claims. So Sheldrake agreed with Wasson that hallucinogenic mushrooms are tied to spirituality and essentially agreed with this idea that mushrooms are stigmatized in Anglo-Saxon society. Now what would this one be? Tricky. Because could be talking about Wasson, could be talking about him. It's more kind of he's the focus, right? So we'll just do that for now. Depends which kind of way I want to kind of. When I write it, depends if I'm focusing on him or Wasson, obviously, right? Because they'd be in different articles ultimately. So, let's see. Criminalized in the 1970s, psychedelics owe their salvation to New Age communities. And these are on the US West Coast, or they're on the West Coast. Members of the psychedelic Resonance, right? Members of the psychedelic Resonance observed over the last 20 years went through the Esalen Institute, right? Founded in 1962, according to Mr. Huxley's, according to Aldous' tenets. So again, Aldous created the nucleus of the kind of New Age nonsense counterculture community. So Robert Jesse, a researcher at Johns Hopkins University of Baltimore, Maryland, is the author of a study in 2006 which confirmed psilocybin can induce mystical experiences. Okay, how would you even measure that? Like, what does it mean? Mystical experience, right? Like I'm genuinely curious from a materialist kind of new agey worldview. What does a mystical experience mean? Just is it mystical, just a subjective feeling, like, you know, happy, sad, hot, cold, mystical, non-mystical? Like what does it mean? Right? Okay. So members of so-called psychedelic resonance, like resonance. I can't say it right now. Of the last 20 years, passed through Esalen Institute. And other New Age communities which continue to use them. So I mean, they're kind of also admitting that, you know, they just break the law but openly get away with it. So a surgeon. So Esalen Institute, founded in 1962 in California, based on Aldous' his tenets. Okay. So, Robert Jesse. So this is an actual example. Very nice. Robert Jesse, researcher at John Hopkins University, who are like pretty much one of the premier spook universities in Baltimore. My apologies. I just got a call. So let's see. To continue, let's kick off some new music. Make sure. I think as long as I'm making sure I'm projecting my voice enough, then that should be fine with the music. It may also make it less cozy. It's debatable. Either way, it kind of helps me. So for now, I think we will try the music. Okay. So what we actually wanted to do is switch to this because see, I was in the middle of typing. I forgot to change to that view. Oh, now you can see it. Okay. Baltimore, Maryland. So I mean, just for clarity, the reason why like the screen can go black like this is that essentially I have the word tab and the the browser, the Firefox, and if I like go from one to the other through like clicking the word, so if I'm on the Word doc like now and I want to go back to the browser, I can do that through clicking on the Word doc, but then it makes it just makes this screen go black unless I change the I change to the browser screen. So yeah, just something to consider. That's why the screen may keep going black. Hopefully with time I'll learn to not do that. Just like with time, hopefully I'll remember always to change the screen. But this is very casual, very kind of just doing it as I am. I'm not trying to make it like fancy or as to the point as it could be. It's just me as I am, according the research I'm doing and seeing which will lead to me producing stuff which is of a higher quality. I see. Okay, so what were we saying? Robert Jesse. So one of the authors of a 2008 was it? 2006 study in the International Journal of Pharmacology. Okay. Confirming psilocybin can induce mystical experiences. Confirming that psilocybin can induce mystical experiences. Again, assertion. I'm sure that'd be a very easy paper to find. Study international. That may not be open source. Let's actually check. So it was scientific papers, just to show. So what we want to do is so his name is, let's see, Robert Jesse, or it'd be Jesse R. Psilocybin 2006. See if we have any luck. Okay, this may be it. May not be, maybe it. If CSV it's taking too long to load. But you can see just from this, so Robert Jesse convene it on the council on spiritual practices, like, you know, you can see what kind of things these spooks can do. So we'll go here because this will be him. So we'll click here because this is PubMed. This will have all his papers. I'm gonna try and find start date 2006, end date 2006. See if it comes up. So, psilocybin can occasion mystical type experiences having substantial and sustained personal meaning and so-called spiritual significance, right? This is probably the one. Let's see. So, Spring Elite. Let's go to the original. Reject optional cookies. Is it open source? This isn't open source. I can log in via an institution. I'm not going to do that there, but either way, at least we can have the summary. Let's say we can't, unfortunately, see the full paper, which is really often scientific papers are just backgrounds, like a mini review anyway. It's not normally too important, and conclusion or discussion is normally just almost again like a review. The results are just, well, they just kind of tell you what was found in their interpretations, kind of their description of the data and what it shows, and then the discussions is more like how it fits into a wider theory, right? But we can kind of see what's going on. So 2006 in Psychopharmacology, official journal. That may be the one. That may be the International Journal of Psychopharmacology. It may not be, but it's likely to be. We're not going to spend too much time on going through his papers to check, but so it's a double-blind study. Higher doses of psilocybin relative to some kind of comparison compound. We'll see what it actually is. So they're adults who have never taken hallucinogen reported reporting participation in religious or spiritual activities. 2 or 3 sessions were conducted at 2 months intervals. I don't know why I said 2. So 30 volunteers received oral psilocybin and methylphenidate hydrochloride in the counterbalance order. So that means that half the participants will be given psilocybin, then this, and then the other half will be given this, and then psilocybin in a kind of randomized way. So half 1 2, half get 2 1, but their participants will be randomly administered into each kind of group. Okay. To obscure. Excuse me. 6 additional volunteers received methylphenidate in the first 2 sessions, and then blinded psilocybin in a third. So the 8-hour session were conducted individually. Volunteers were encouraged to close their eyes. So 8-hour sessions, goodness. So volunteers had to close their eyes and direct their attention inwardly. Volunteers completed questionnaires assessing the drug's effect and mystical experience immediately after. So it's just subjective, really. It's not actually a good study, really. Now, I don't believe in physicalism. I don't believe that the brain is what creates the mind, but I mean, that's a general scientific view, let's say. Scientific's a bit of a misnomer, but they could quite easily done, like, for instance, EEG recording to just kind of get a rough gauge on is the patient, does the patient have like theta waves out, alpha waves, that kind of thing. And yeah, you can't figure out too much about what's materially happening with humans, because we don't. It's not okay to like open the human brain and like do deep brain electrode recording like you can with animals, for instance. But you could use animal models to pair with this study, perhaps, just to see what the drugs are doing and see if like a certain neuronal pattern is correlated with unusual behaviors, which they could then, I guess, interpret as being spiritual. I mean, it'd be, again, just very subjective, fluffy nonsense, but just relying on people to report what's mystical and what isn't is just as fluffy. So yeah, psilocybin also, so that's what it does. Psilocybin increased measure of mystical experience. At 2 months, the volunteers rated psilocybin experiences as having substantial personal meaning and spiritual significance. So yeah, I guess that's the study in question, most likely. I'm not particularly impressed, but I'm sure a lot of his later work was like, let's do let's do the last 5 years. Only one paper. This could be another thing we investigate some other time. But yeah, just to show kind of what the process of scientific papers often will look like. Because this is a primary paper, so it's talking about a study that was done, right, where they looked at empirical evidence, or sorry, they directly obtained empirical evidence through some measurement, and that can be open source or not. A lot of times it isn't. And then there's reviews which just talk about like bringing together a bunch of primary papers and discussing kind of their overall theory, like might talk about studies that find contradictory evidence and why that might be, that sort of thing. There's systemic reviews which are similar but more like they set out how they decide what papers to include and what papers to exclude, and they're very like methodical about it. And then there's meta-analyses, which is again similar, but it's comparing kind of, if I'm not mistaken, it's almost like trying to combine different studies, different like samples in different studies, into almost like treat it like one big sample. So yeah, that's probably slightly wrong and reductionistic, but it's almost like a systemic review, but looking at more the data side of things. So yeah, okay. And that supposedly that paper rekindled scientists' interest in psychedelics. I mean, is there a way to see? Sometimes you can kind of see the actual influence. Like if we come here, cited by this is going to be a very gross means of trying to see its influence, but cited by, ooh, that's quite a lot of citations, so that is indeed quite an influential paper. Not bad. But yeah, okay. So we'll say influential paper has since been cited by 396 papers, 396 papers at the time of writing, and this is 2025. That's how we do it in the UK. We write the day, the month, the year. I think Americans do it the other way around, but and so PubMed is the one claiming it. They admit, because they have databases to look, right? So we're treated like that. Yeah. Okay. Good. So that's definitely gonna add some time on, but that's a little bit of a what do you call it? A little bit of a not segue, you know, going discussing accounts. So psilocybin has a less controversial image than LSD in the collective imagination, which helps to obtain funding and authorization, according to Frederick Barrett, a neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins University. Well, it kind of shows the power of marketing, doesn't it? So that's interesting. I just point that out. So, I mean, I would argue that it's probably more along the lines of, if I'm not mistaken, LSD lasts a long time. It can last like 24 hours or something, like 10 to 24 hours. That's not really going to be ideal for patients. Like, they don't want to be hallucinating all day. It's not going to lead to a healthy lifestyle. So mushrooms and short-acting psychedelics would be better in that regard. So we're saying, oh, did I switch to no? Red is right now. A neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins University, where the spooks are. Keep doing that. Claims easier to get funding and authorization for psilocybin studies as LSD has worse public perception, worse image, would you say? Okay. Keep it simple, just do that. Okay. Okay, so bringing it back here. I'm sure we'll find out who Frederick Barrett is. So, since then, dozens of studies have been conducted at leading American universities and British universities, suggesting that psilocybin helps treat disorders as diverse as cancer-related anxiety, anorexia, and cigarette addiction. Why do scientists prefer psilocybin to LSD? Well, I didn't read that. And its effect lasts between 4 and 6 hours compared to more than twice as long for LSD. To study, volunteers don't need to sleep at the lab. Yes, more practical. Mr. Barrett is one of the few researchers to have secured public money to study psychedelics. Most of the donations come, for the moment, from philanthropists and pharmaceutical companies. I happen to know, I won't disclose, but I do happen to, let's just say I've heard of certain people, certain professors at certain universities in the UK who have done experiments with psychedelics. They've essentially obtained illegally and done some of it illegally to I think obtain results ahead of funding, let's just say. I won't actually state who and stuff, because they told me, but I can't prove that they told me. So I'll bring it up if I ever end up like talking about that university and what they've been up to in their connections. But that'd be something for maybe another time. Um, but yes. Anyway. Um, and yeah, I'm not going to do that often. I'm not going to be like, well, this is the case, but I won't source it to prove it, or I won't reveal what I'm talking about. Just in this particular case, because it's not like strictly relevant to the topic right now, and I'd want to look into it more to maybe have more evidence first, before I throw around accusations coming, originating from me. But yeah. Um, Neuroscientists looked for the right wording to summarize the current state of research and said psilocybin increases connections between neurons. Yeah, increases synaptic and neuronal plasticity. It is like the brain is reformatted. It makes the brain kind of more like it was when it was, when you're growing up and there's not all the synaptic pruning hasn't happened just yet, essentially. The zones where loops of remembrance are created, typical of depressive states, become more flexible. That's why it can trigger decisive changes in behavior. Yeah, so one idea is in depression you see less synaptic plasticity, and you see, like let's say with insomnia disorder, you see kind of negative obsessions, like repetitive thoughts that someone can't stop thinking of. Like there's a study done, I believe, where they got participants to sing, to do karaoke in front of the crowd. Really embarrassing, right? And then later on, they put participants in like the MRI scanner and had them recall the experience. So I think they played back the recording of them doing it. Participants who didn't have insomnia didn't like react that negatively, and their brain scan showed kind of showed a like much weaker trace, whereas those who did have insomnia um, tended like the negative memory trace tended to be much stronger in them, and they reacted like they cringed more, and it shows like that essentially like depressive like states tend to be kind of done maybe kind of essentially negative obsessions, negative thinking, right? Which I would argue is critical thinking, is kind of in the name. I think like to be the negative or the pessimist view of life, which I'm not saying is true, but I think like attitude-wise, it's kind of taking a more critical approach to things rather than just like accepting immediate feelings, let's say. Now that can lead to like negative delusions, of course, but it can. But I guess like being negative and delusional versus just being critical kind of end up looking similar if you're just looking at it in terms of pure optimism, positivity versus pessimism, negativity, right? They're not the same, but it's just if you're looking at it through that lens, they look very similar. This is my point. So yeah, and I mean it's quite easy to demonstrate that. I mean, just look at like with pessimism, you can, or with optimism, you can say like, well, this is bad, but at least we have this, so it's acceptable. With pessimism, you can make the logical argument, well, if you have any wrongness or negativity at all, then how can you accept those states of affairs? Because is it not just an arbitrary line you're drawing by saying, well, this is like imperfect, right? This is wrong, but we can accept the wrongness because of the goodness. That's kind of like an ad hoc line. It's inherently ad hoc, preference based rather than logical, because logical does deal in absolutes. It's like, yes or no, like true or false, right? You don't actually get like degrees in logic doesn't give you degrees, right? Degrees come from, like, let's say degrees are good or bad, that just comes from preference, essentially. Mostly, I'd argue. Very grand reductionistic things I'm saying right now, but yeah, it's just something to consider. Psychedelics do make people feel better generally. It does tend to hit negative thought loops quite well, but at the same time, I don't, you're saying like those who stand for nothing will fall for anything. It's kind of that. It makes people very, it makes people egotistical and very like almost in a manic like state, I'd argue, and because of that, because it makes people operate on feelies and ego, and clinging to what seems cool, what seems true, what seems sensational, what seems deep or profound, rather than what actually is like logically true or false. It makes people very very skeptical, very non-skeptical. So that's kind of a dissad, and I think that's kind of why it's pushed personally. But because it almost becomes a state where, like, if you're critical and not just just go through and open up and just love, man, even though people can have contradictory desires, so it doesn't really actually make sense. I guess it almost creates a situation where it's like soma, yeah, it's like moksha, it's like take this to just be at one with the collective. Of course, the collective, just the only way you can be at one with the collective is by being complementary, and to be complementary you'll have to accept the same things, and the same things are set by the guru, the cult, so yeah, maybe for some people that's okay, but I tend to like to think and be critical, and if I'm going to like accommodate what someone's saying, then to me the actual quote-unquote equality or actual consideration would mean using a common, non-biased, non-ad hoc language, and the only thing that exists which is non-ad hoc is reason, right? So yeah, I guess that's kind of where I come at it from. Can definitely talk more about that another time, but we should just get that down. What's said here, not my rabble. So, oh yeah, and because LSDs, because mushrooms only last 5 to 6 hours, for mushrooms effects, whereas LSD lasts, what did you say, like twice or as third as long? Yeah, lasts more than twice as long, indeed. Barrett is one of the few researchers to get public money for psychedelic research. Normally they call it donations. Funding comes from philanthropists, dodgy people, or pharmaceutical companies, evil people. Well, actually both are dodgy and evil, but Um, so yeah, they kind of hold this idea as well now. So we're just Barrett claims psychedelics um, increases neuronal connectivity, disrupting depressive loops of memory. You know, the whole learned helplessness idea and all of that. Yeah, as if people are depressed just because of past memories or trauma rather than not having a meaning or purpose going forward, right? Okay. So, this is not far from Huxley's daughter perceptions opening up the infinite. I mean, I'd say that's a world of difference. It's very different saying that taking these things lets you see the infinite oneness, and taking these things gives gives your brain more neuronal pathways in which the loop of you, I guess, because they see the brain as just deterministic pathways constantly looping, right? Like a cybernetic, so a self-regulating system. And that's yeah, very different to just adding a few little extra pathways to break up a loop. But yeah, psychedelics brings us back to childhood, and that's kind of what I said. I don't think it literally does, but it makes the brain a lot more, you know, cognitively flexible, or neuronally flexible. But I mean, you know, if there's one thing you can say about childhood that accompanies that is gullibility, which would kind of lead into my point, wouldn't it? Right? Brain imaging has shown that these substances stimulate cognitive plasticity. Humans develop at the age of 4 when the ego is fixed. That doesn't seem very sciencey to me, but what do they mean by ego? When the idea of the self is fixed? Well, I mean, you know, my idea of myself has changed a lot, particularly as I've learned philosophy. So the children are less firm in their beliefs than adults. As consciousness is focused on tasks to be performed. I guess it's saying adults focus on tasks to be performed. I mean, that's kind of true. Like adults kind of have like set, this is good, this is bad. Most don't question why they think A is, you know, A is good and B is bad, and then they just use their reason to think how they can get from A to B. So they're very like pragmatist or consequentialist without even realizing most people are. Drawing on the works of the philosopher Alison Gopnik. Under psychedelics, our brains regain the childlike ability to learn and explore. I mean, that's pretty ironic because I'm here, you know, pre-psychedelics, I call all of this anyway, but I'm here critiquing the kind of set dogma or ways of thinking they're pushing about psychedelics from a non kind of psychedelic, from just using reason, which I have, I think everyone has, innately. And if anything, psychedelics, I'd argue, limits your ability to reason and actually therefore destroys your ability to learn and explore. It creates the ability to change, which could or could not be changing into truth, but it doesn't actually really give you the ability to learn. It just gives you the ability to deterministically change, right? And in fact, I can't necessarily prove this, but I think that reason, you know, imposes itself onto and changes neuronal pathways, where psychedelics is like a foreign influence almost competing with that. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. It's interesting though. It's interesting. So I will just take a break and then I shall get that down. Unfortunately, I had to end the recording, but I shall actually continue next episode with this time I'll attempt to live stream it and see how that goes. Um, but if that doesn't work, then I will just do the next episode continuing from here. Goodbye.